listening is only half of it. It's slowing down is really what the superpower is. Can you slow the situation down? Hey, on today's episode, we're going to have a little bit of a continuing conversation from our last episode where we talked about goal setting. And we're going to have a little focus here on probably one of the bigger things that's missing from most people's success or contributing to most people's failures is maybe that lack of emotional intelligence. And how do we
Yeah.
help them tune into that? And how do we help them get that?
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff to talk about. A lot of people in leadership tend to favor processes or people, and we're going to kind of talk about both sides of that. It's important to set the goals and be deliberate in putting something on paper and pointing to it and say, this is the scoreboard, this is your scorecard. But also, it's really important to have those softer skills where we manage the relationship effectively to help our team members be successful.
100%. Love it.
So last week we kind of role played, which was fun and new for the show, and we had Matt kind of role play with me as he's the manager and I'm the employee, and we talked through, how do you ask great questions to get your employees to speak up about what matters to them, and to speak up on their perception of the role that you're asking them to fill in the companies. Matt, anything that you want to recap on that episode where we role played, or do you want to just jump into some other stuff that's on your mind today?
Yeah, it's a good thing to touch on, especially because we have those conversations for an hour or two with the person we're having them with, and really good intent, and people walk away feeling really great from those typically if we do them the right way. And as a leader, we get kind of swamped by everything else that happens immediately after that, the next day, the day after that, right? So you cannot lose sight of it, and you cannot forget to follow up with those things. So if I were going to touch on anything from last week, like today would be the day that you should be following up with those people that you were talking with this day last week. Hey, great conversation. What have we started? As simple as that. Like, what can I help you start? What have you started? How's it going so far? Little things like that where you're checking in 10, 15 minutes at a time, letting them know it's not out of sight, out of mind just because you're done talking about it from last week. So yeah, if I were going to touch on anything, that would be it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. It's, the owners or the managers tend to kind of run the business in a lot of cases, the kind of the chicken with the head cut off analogy. A lot of managers just view themselves as, well, my job's to put out fires. And so a lot of times managers are more reactive than proactive. And for the manager, that can oftentimes work. You're showing up in the nick of time to save the day, whatever the issue is. But you have to be really deliberate in understanding that your employees need the structure and the stability of routine.
Mm-hmm.
And you might not like routine. In fact, it might be why you became a manager or an owner. You like the chaos, you kind of enjoy it. But the people that stick around, the great employees that give you a good amount of their time and high quality work, they're looking for something that's much more reliable and steady. And so, kind of going against your own free will and setting something on the calendar and committing to it is a big step for the leader to take.
1,000,000%. I couldn't agree more. And I'm reminded of not too long ago for myself, sitting in my truck prior to walking into my building early, and I'm probably already 4 or 5 phone calls deep, a couple from reps, a couple from production, and all of the different problems. And, that chaos becomes overwhelming. And as hard a worker as I believe that I am, and as hard a worker as many of the owners and leaders are that we work with and that started it, there's you can't outwork chaos. At a certain point, chaos is going to overwhelm, and it's going to take you down. And I hit that wall myself, right? And we all will, we all do. And the people that unfortunately suffer most are not the owners or the leaders. They're suffering back. Don't get me wrong. But the people that suffer the worst are the people. When you and I hear this too, right? When we're talking with our clients, I have a people problem. My people are terrible, right? Or I don't have good people. I can't find enough good people. And I would say, maybe it's not 9 times out of 10. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit on that, but I would say it's darn close to that you don't have a people problem. You got a process problem. You haven't invested well enough in them. You haven't scheduled well enough for them. You haven't outlined these things well enough. And either the process isn't good or they're not haven't been taught the process well enough, and that's usually where our issues are.
Yeah. And on the soft skills side of it, and you're absolutely right. When I started here at Powerful Media, it was a Google document with chicken scratches. It was, well, we'll figure it out. And my natural management style is very laissez-faire. I've had to work through my own inability to be assertive over the years running Powerful Media. And so learning that you get this stuff documented, you hand it out, you repeat it over and over again is absolutely essential. And the nice thing about that is it reduces the need to talk about stuff all the time. If you can just hand off a document and say, I need you to review this, and you just sign off on it, we're gonna talk about it once a quarter or something like that. That's way better than, hey, I told you last week, you're making me tell you this week. Why can't you
Mm-hmm.
remember it? Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's a big deal. It takes a lot of pressure off of the owner. We talked with Liz a couple weeks ago, and it's on one of the TikTok shorts where we talk about the human brain can only hold so much information at one time, and it can't multitask. And so getting stuff down in writing and giving your team members stuff to reference is really important. I think that the chaos of a lot of entrepreneurs is they access random amounts of information better than most. And so they operate from this place of pulling from everywhere. And they need to remember that their team can't operate that way
Yeah.
necessarily.
Well, we started the show by talking a little bit about the importance of emotional intelligence, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's a really great segue. So
Mm-hmm.
I think what that segue is, and if we could take it there, cognitive bias and understanding who you are as an individual, I
Mm-hmm.
think is probably the most critical step into understanding who others are around you. And I'm sure you've read books on this as well too. But I think one of the things that we're all very guilty of is we talk, we coach, we work,
Mm-hmm.
and we lead the way that we would want to be led, right? Sales reps, we sell the way we would want to be sold to, especially when we're not doing well. Like we fall very easily into that path because, well, everybody must be like me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever found yourself like going like, that's right, I not everybody is me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's so silly. It's just the human error to just act and speak out of that assumption, even though we know better. I mean, ask anybody, hey, are people different? And they'll be like, yeah. It's like, okay, cool. So you acknowledge it up here, but your behavior says you expect others to be just like you. And it seems that it's so obvious, and yet it's so complicated at the same time.
It's wild, right? You can't turn TV on for 5 seconds and not be just blasted in the face with the idea
Yeah.
that we couldn't be more different, right?
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
when it comes to like our interactions, we're going like, I don't understand why you don't get this. I get it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because they're a different human being who thinks and learns differently, right? I think we have a lot of similarities, and maybe, those 4 people work similarly, and those 3 people work similarly, and those 2 people. But the idea as a leader to sit up there and say, like, this is the way that everybody is going to do it because it's the way that I got it.
Yep.
And I've been as guilty of that as anybody else. And I've had many people remind me on a regular basis, not everybody is you. And probably my best person reminding me of that is my wife, right?
Yep.
Not everybody is
Yep.
as stubborn as you, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But, we need that reminder. And I think when you go into building a process or building a system or building a tool, you start to build these things, and you probably get too far down a path before even good people that are, or people that are good at this, realize that, shoot, I need to make sure I'm designing this for the whole, right, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So it's a wild thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the psychology, the term is the curse of knowledge. You just assume other people know what you know, have the experiences that you have. It's a phrase I grew up hearing my dad say it. He'd be like, hey, I need you to do this thing. And my dad's extremely technical. He can rebuild car engines and build houses, and he can do all these great things. And he'd be like, hey, I need you to go do this technical thing. And I'd be like, I don't know how. He goes, well, Jay, it's just like brain surgery. If you know how to do it, it's easy. I'm like, it's a silly statement, but it's like, I'm coming at my employees going, it's really easy.
Mm-hmm.
Completely forgetting the fact that it was hard for me for the first year
Yeah.
or 5 years. And so we're coming in going, hey, I want you to set up, a meeting. And they're like, I've never run a meeting before. Don't worry about it. It's easy.
Super
That's
easy.
easy because you've run 1,000 meetings, and probably the first 300 were pretty bad.
Hmm. Yeah.
You had to figure some stuff out.
Yeah. I had my college coach used to, and I might have shared this on our show at some point before, or just in a conversation you and I have had every fall. We'd have a team meeting to start the year. And the last thing he would say to everybody is, I need you to hurry up and fail now, today, right?
Mhm.
Kind of thing. And,
Mhm.
and I was much younger and much dumber than I am still today. I'm not as young, but I'm still as dumb as I was probably back then. But what I wish I knew back then as well as I know it now was like he needed us to fail in October, not in March in the ninth inning of a game, so we could learn from it. And to your point, I learned those things that I take for granted now by failing so many times at it and going, okay, I could get it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. But then as a leader, I get frustrated when somebody doesn't get it right away. Like, that's not fair. But
Mhm.
my expectation is that everybody knows it the way that I do. And that's just not the reality of things, or that they learn it the way that I do. And that's absolutely not the reality of things. So we got to find ways to like really be self-aware of who we are, and am I trying to fit this into that box or fit everybody else into that box?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, I learned early on, I'm people first, and when I was looking for ways to scale powerful, I found myself writing job descriptions for the people I had instead of writing job descriptions for the work I needed done. And so
Hmm.
I think to your point there, you do have to to a certain extent write a job description for the work that needs to be done,
Hmm.
and then you partner with the people that you bring on board and coach them and walk them through the process, what it looks like to fill this role effectively. I think that the soft skill for us that we want to just impose ourselves on others, listening with intent to understand, not respond, is a superpower, right? And then asking effective questions after the fact, after you listen to understand, then asking concise questions is the
Hmm.
best way to get out of your own way. I think a lot of owners and managers have an agenda, and so they don't listen to understand. They listen to let the other person finish so that they can then impose what they want on the other person to get the result they're trying to get.
Yeah, man, it's a good point. It reminded me of one of the first people I worked for in this industry. He was a good dude. I liked him a lot. But he used to train sales reps would talk about fantasy football syndrome, right? So for anybody that's
Hmm.
played fantasy football, drafts happen. Everybody's
Yep.
super excited. I got some crazy sleeper pick. Side note, it's the guy that got highlighted on Hard Knocks every year now at this point.
Yeah.
Like that, we all go like,
Yeah.
oh, he's going to be great. Like, no, they just showed him
Yep.
on the show. Hopefully, he is like
Hmm.
for that kid. But
Hmm.
two buddies end up. The idea of this is two buddies end up talking to each other. One guy goes, "Oh, I just finished my draft. Let me tell you about my draft." And the
Hmm.
second the other buddy hears a fantasy football draft, they immediately go, I can't wait to tell this person about my draft. And they sit there nodding their head
Yep.
and going, his
Yep.
mouth is still moving. It's still moving. It's still moving. It stopped moving. Here's my draft, right? And if you were
Yeah.
to ask either one of them about the other's draft, they would go like, I don't know. I got Christian McCaffrey in the third round, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
I know, right? Like that's it. And I don't know why that's just stuck with me ever since. I was like, that's
Hmm.
a really good way, and I use it all the time. So I think it's a
Yeah.
good one. But you said a interesting thing, right? So our superpower is, how did you say it? You said it's listening or
Listening to understand,
understand.
not listening to reply.
You know, I I I 100% agree with that. Except I take it a step further, and I think it's beyond just the listening, because, like you said, listening to understand as opposed to reply requires something from everybody. And I've always kind of prided myself on, and probably sometimes painfully so to our listeners, I think that your superpower, if you develop that skill the right way, listening to understand, is the
Hmm.
ability to slow things down, right?
Sure.
So like slowing down a conversation and understanding, which leads to the the super tool, right? So like Thor has his hammer, right? Kind of not to get too
Hmm.
nerdy on everybody, but like the power isn't in the question. Anybody can ask a question. It's in the follow-up question, because most people don't want to give you the full answer right away because they
Mm,
don't know that you care enough to get
yeah.
the full answer. But when you acknowledge that you heard the thing and then you want to know more, people generally will go like, "Oh, okay, yeah, here you go." Right? Like
Hmm.
that's a different thing. And that takes you slowing down so you don't miss the word that they said or
Yep.
the way that they said something that's important to that individual. And the reality of it is that the response is generally not too much different than it would have been anyway. You just tweak a word or tweak something else that you would have said, whether it's like rolling out a process because you've thought through
Hmm.
all of the things for the company, or trying to sell, a bathroom or windows or
Hmm.
floor coatings, whatever it might be. But I need to know what matters for this individual sitting in front of me to get them where they want to go, where they need to go. But I need to
Hmm.
slow it down in that moment because everybody's in a rush to get through the awkward part of this conversation.
Yeah,
So,
and that's it's called reflective listening, right?
mm,
So when somebody reveals something to you, what you can do is you can reflect back onto them what they said. And so if you have a sales guy that comes in and he's like all the leads suck today, and all you have to go is suck.
huh.
That's it. Hey, well, yeah. There's this and this and this, and you go interesting. And when you just give the word that they gave you back to them, you give them an opportunity to explain it. And sometimes it's, well, actually, you know what? They don't all suck. I just had one. You're like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me about the one. And you can show empathy towards that one because it was really bad, or you can pivot to what went really well. Say,
Hmm.
tell me about the other ones that weren't suck.
Yeah. We used to say that's, when we would do reviews, right, for appointments for reps, and I don't mean like we're reviewing the quality of an appointment or not. We're reviewing the opportunity and what you could have done differently. The goal that we would set at the end of this is, so we had a rule. Okay, so as a rep giving feedback to another rep, you are never allowed to say like, if you did this, it would have sold.
Mm-hmm.
And my response isn't very, HR friendly,
Yeah.
because as the rep who is the one that ran the appointment, they would be allowed to say, fuck you, you weren't there, you didn't try those
Mm-hmm.
things. Like,
Yep.
and that's totally justified. Like, I can't tell you that if you said this magic word, they would have bought me
Yeah.
$80,000 worth of floor coatings from you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
fuck you, you weren't there. Right. Like,
Yeah.
but what you can say is like, if you try these things, it may have changed the conversation, continued the conversation, but I don't know what the end result still would have been. But the other thing too is that the other goal was to get the other potential answer, which is, sounds like you might have done everything you can, or like it was a tough situation. Put it on the
Mm-hmm.
shelf and leave it there. Like we had this
Yep.
kind of like mental visual shelf. Like, but the reality of it is there shouldn't be, all of your appointments can't go on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
That shelf can only hold so much weight. And if you're continually
Mm-hmm.
stacking so much up there, like it's going to fall down at a certain point. And that's because you're putting too much stuff on the shelf and not taking responsibility and holding the things and learning from them and taking them to the next appointment. Like learn from the things that you should learn from and get better. So you're not continually like throwing things on a shelf that were opportunities missed. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but you do have to acknowledge the ones that were, yeah, man, you know what? They're not all gems. That's the way it
Mm-hmm.
works. It's why we get paid what we get paid.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and in the relationship building side of this, and I talk to a lot of people. I'm in Minnesota, and the phrase Minnesota nice is very real. And it my wife moved from California, where it's fast paced and pretty blunt, and the East Coast is that way too. But Minnesota is this place where the people at checkout move slow, and everybody has a couple of real safe answers. Oh, how you doing? And I'm fine, don't you know? Oh, yeah, me
yeah.
too. Great, you betcha. Right? Like these super silly but really safe answers.
Hmm.
And so when you're communicating with a team member, especially here in Minnesota, but a lot of times they have one or two answers that they can give you that are safe answers. How did your day go? It was fine. And that's where you go, "Oh, fine. Tell me about that." They're like, "Oh shoot. What did I mean when I said fine? I just
Hmm.
I just tried to pacify them and get them to
Hmm.
move on." And usually they have two or three of those. Well, it was an okay day. Okay, well you said fine and now you said okay. What does okay mean?
Hmm.
And now you start to get them to go, well, now I have to justify it. And if you have that relationship with them and that emotional intelligence, the ability to engage, you can draw stuff out of them and have a real high quality conversation with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the ability to stay in that maybe awkwardness a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Because it's awkward to like, hey, no, 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 I'm asking for an answer, you know.
Yeah,
And if you don't mind, I'm going to share a quick story because the Minnesota nice thing is very real. So my
I know.
first ever trip out to Minnesota was when I was with
Hmm.
Renewal by Anderson, and I had time to kill between, which usually doesn't happen, right? You go on these like work events, and it's like you get
Hmm.
the thing where you like go into your hotel room and you leave right away. But so I had time to kill between the meetings and the happy hour thing that we were going to do or whatever it was. And so I go down to the hotel lobby bar or whatever, and there was a gentleman sitting there, and then I get a drink, and he says, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey, doing well. Here for work." And yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I'm actually on my way home, but traffic is crazy, so I stop to get dinner every now and again, and then I go on the rest of the way." Mind you, I was from DC. I turn and look out
Hmm.
the window, and I was like,
Traffic.
"Traffic? That's a car. That's a car there?
Yeah,
No."
yeah.
Okay. And he goes, "Oh, you're from DC." He goes, "Man, people from DC are really nice." I was like, "No, no, 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 the Washington DC. That's where I'm from." And he goes, "Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, people are so nice there." And I was like, "Hold on, just so we're on the same page. I have never once, and mind you, 2 minutes before this, I had commented about how good his dinner looked, which was
Hmm.
steak and lobster,
Hmm.
right?" And he was like, "It was really good." I said, "Mind you, in DC, nobody is that nice because nobody in DC would offer me half of their steak and lobster like you just did 2 minutes ago, sir. Like,
Yeah,
you met the nicest person in DC, apparently. Like, that's the
yeah,
craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, this is nice."
yeah,
People would be like,
yeah.
"Hey, stop talking to me, buddy. I got places to be in DC." So
Hmm.
Minnesota nice thing is a real thing. My wife's family's from the Midwest too, and there's definitely a different way of life for sure, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The
That's
Back
funny.
to our conversation. Sorry to derail it, but that was every time I hear that, I'm reminded of that experience. I'm like, I should have taken half that
Hmm.
lobster just to like eat it in the car on the way there.
That's right. You should have at least to like continue the story. And so here's the steak he gave me.
I still have the lobster. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, sorry, I derailed the conversation with that one, but I was that one was I feel too good not to share. I think getting back to what we're talking about it and the that awkwardness in that conversation and that kind of, hey, I need an answer, and that follow up. It's what's weird about that is the realization that somebody has that like another person cares about me, right?
Hmm.
Or cares about my situation or cares about what I just whatever, just cares. It's
Yeah.
not similar to the gentleman sitting next to me. Like that human interaction doesn't happen often anymore. And we all go visit these other businesses or offices that have great culture and try to go, hey, we need to bring that back and recreate that at our office. And we think it's like the sign on the wall or
Hmm.
they do the fun game where they spin the wheels or they do these things. It's not that. There is a genuine thing where people genuinely care about the impact that they have on others in this building. And it's in where it starts is that awkward second question, third
Yep.
question, like, no, 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 I want to know your answer.
Yep.
And then we'll work on the solution after that. But I need to know you first. I need to know why things are happening the way they're happening for you. And that's why some salespeople are really successful. Some marketers are really successful is they really do a great job of asking. You want to have a really interesting drill to try with your people, sit down in a room, have them pair up and see how long they can go without asking a close-ended question of each other, a yes
Hmm.
or no question,
Yeah.
right? Salespeople go,
Yep.
oh, I'm going to be great at it. You'll laugh. They
Yeah.
won't get
Yeah.
past two questions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No,
So does this sound good to you? No.
no. Damn it.
Shoot.
Yeah. Right. Like,
That didn't take very long.
no, it's hard. It's really hard. I
Yeah.
went through a training on it a couple of years back when I was at Renewal. Actually, it was really powerful, and we had homework I'd sent home. Was like because that's always like the worst one, right? You pick your kid up from school. How was school? Good.
Yep.
Cool, man.
Yep.
Feels like I was there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm
Would
just
you
living it
learn?
with you,
Yeah. What'd you learn today? Nothing. Perfect.
man.
Glad my tax dollars are going
That's
really
right.
well here, right? Like
Yeah.
you're like Michelangelo painting me a picture right now, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't even know who Michael. Never mind, right? You didn't learn anything today. But we had this, assignment to go home. It was like, hey, ask a question, prompts the longest answer
Mhm.
you can get, right?
Yeah.
So I'll never forget going home and And we came back the next day, and the question that was probably the best one that was asked, right? Went home, and one of the guys asked his wife, tell me about something that made you smile today. Man, that's awesome, right? I was like, I'm stealing
Hmm.
that. I came
Yeah.
home and I asked my wife that, and she was like, that's a great question. Who told you to ask me that?
Yeah, I love it. You're like, "Oh, honey, you give me so little credit."
That's it. That's it. I was like, I have much more emotional intelligence than that. I promise you.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she's like, well, normally your first question is what's for dinner? So I was taken off
Yeah.
guard.
Yeah, exactly. Except not open ended though, but for to be
Hmm.
fair, because it could be a million things, and describe what's for
Hmm.
dinner for me. Yeah, it's a big deal. But I think that that slowing down thing and making sure that you're understanding. And like I said, this works for leaders, understanding when you're rolling out process or you feel like things aren't going well. And I was talking earlier about having that moment in the truck in like everybody's problems or there's an issue with the process. There's an issue with something that I didn't roll out well. And I needed to go
Hmm.
back and revisit what everybody's issues were inside of that to get
Hmm.
my life back, to get like my power back in the situation. And if I didn't take the moment to slow down, and I mean, I would have lost it, right? So, in leadership, it's really important to take those moments and slow down. And you're not going to out hustle chaos. You're just not.
Yeah.
Have some
Yeah.
emotional intelligence about who you are and who the people are that you surrounded yourself with. You don't always have a people problem. Most times you don't. You have a process
Yeah.
problem. And then this translates onto the sales side or the marketing side, like we were talking about. Like if you can teach your people how to identify who they are and
Hmm.
then recognize who they're talking to, like through some cues.
Hmm.
And we take people through this in the trainings we do, right?
Yep.
I just did this with, you mentioned Liz, I did this with her and her team. And it was really funny. Like, some of them have to raise their hand and go, I'm the all show buyer, kind of thing, which is like, I really just care, like, if it's the fanciest thing or something along those lines. And, or like I'm
Hmm.
the, relationship buyer, that kind of thing. Like understanding who you are, but also how to recognize those other buyers is critical. Like
Yep.
it's not going to change what you sell or how you like, or how you do the install or anything along those lines. But you also know
Hmm.
that the information that's important for that homeowner to know or hear from you. It's not all of it. If you got an engineer on the phone or you have an engineer sitting in front of you, like they don't want you to ask about their grandkids right away when you walk in the home. They
Yeah.
want to know like things from the spec and tech. And if you don't know the answer
Hmm.
and you try to answer,
Hmm. Hmm.
thank you for your time. I'll see you later. I'm sorry I let you down.
Yep.
Like you
Yep.
you need to answer factually, and if you don't know the answer, you need to just say like, "Hey, that's a great question. I bet I know who knows the answer," and send a note and get
Yeah.
the answer for them.
Yep.
Like so understanding who you are and who others are around you, that might be the
Hmm.
biggest superpower you could have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to add to that. I think the slowing down is paired with curiosity. Powerful media, one of our values is we're curious about people and marketing. And I think it's so important to, even when you have an agenda to carry, you're a marketer, you're creating great content, you're a sales guy, you're looking to close a deal, you're a leader, it doesn't matter where it is. But when you enter into any circumstance with curiosity rather than a set agenda, I think that's what you have to slow down for one. Right? It's
Hmm.
just mandatory. You can't come in knowing everything.
Hmm.
And so slowing that down and sitting there and going, "Oh man, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that."
Yeah.
Like, but I think the trick is, and I get caught up in this too. Like, I'm not always curious.
No.
I sometimes walk in and go, I don't even care what you think. In fact, I don't even care about you today.
Yeah.
like, I have this thing, it needs to be done. I need you to get it done now. But if I can slow down and be curious about why it wasn't done or why it wasn't done the way I asked it to be done, now all of a sudden I'm going to get way better results just because I slowed down and had a curious question or two
Yeah.
instead of informing them that they're failing and that they need to do it my way.
Yeah. I think that you can still show up to those conversations with an end result that
Mhm.
needs to
Mhm.
happen, right?
Yeah.
I need to make a sale. I'd like to make a sale, I guess is probably a better way of saying it. But also, like, we need to make this process change. One of my favorite books, Never Split the Difference. I probably have referenced it a
Yeah.
million times before. I can't remember if it's in that book, but the author of it, it's either in that book or in a talk he's given at some point. He talks about his son was a football player and was a pretty good football player, but he had a change of positions at some point or a change of scheme, and I'm kind of paraphrasing and butchering this, but he was a physical player. And liked contact and like thought that in his new role in the new scheme was not being successful because he kept running into and like bodying the person that was the first blocker as opposed to like trying to avoid the block to make the tackle, right?
Hmm.
And the team was suffering as a result. And the conversation that happened was really important, right? Like, hey, I could go yell at him and be like, you're failing your team, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, blah blah blah, right? And the realization of like, if I take that path, it's not going to get him closer to the result that I need from him, even though it's best for him and best for the team. But
Hmm.
how do I get him there? But get him there with it being not my idea, but our idea. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I need to
Yep.
understand why he's doing what he's doing. And
Hmm.
so he stepped back and was like, all right, I know my son. My son is prideful and this, that, the other, and like, and believes in like honor and all of these other things. He thinks he'll be lesser if he avoids contact. He's worried that others will think he's not, doing right by his teammates by taking the first blow kind of thing. So he
Hmm.
asked him that and he was like, yeah, I do. Okay. Do you also understand by doing that, like you're causing, that guy to get further up the field? And again, like I said, I'm butchering and I'm paraphrasing. It's a really good part. As
Hmm.
a leader, you should read that part if you read nothing else, because what it is like he understood the mindset that was preventing the end result from happening. But
Yeah.
then he asked the questions that got him to vocalize it, which
Hmm.
allowed them to move past it. That's critical because the best thing is when it's not my idea, it's our idea. I don't
Yep.
ever want it to be my idea. When it's our idea, ooh, that's where magic happens,
Yep.
man.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yeah. Chris Voss wrote Never Split the Difference. Excellent book.
yeah, yeah,
I was
it's
just thinking
fantastic.
about some of his stories about just the hostage negotiations, and the premise was if you split the difference, then neither of you are happy.
Hmm.
And what a great way to just state the obvious, really. And he touches on how to ask great questions in there, and he says don't ask why unless you have to, because why is always viewed as condemnatory unless you have a relationship built up with the other person where they won't feel like you're accusing them. And so his solutions to that, and this is stuff that our listeners can implement today, is don't ask why did you do that, because that requires a defense. Say what's going on, or how did this happen, right?
Hmm.
And our brains, for whatever reason, are going to receive what and how with a more open mind.
Hmm.
And it's going to be, oh, you're interested in knowing more about me.
Hmm.
And so, and what else is another great one.
Hmm.
So you can just shape some of these open-ended questions in a way that brings partnership to it. And in psychology, right, in the helping professions, the best psychologists get no credit because the person in therapy believes that they came up with the whole thing on their own,
Ah, it,
right?
and when I was coaching baseball, and I would coach other coaches, and we used to joke that the best skill you could have was you became a mind ninja, where you could like
Mm-hmm.
sneak into a kid's brain and like plant the idea and come back out and ask a
Yep.
question, and you're like, that sounds
Yep.
like a great idea. We should try that.
Yeah.
And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden they get up there and go, bam, like that was awesome. It worked great. Like
Yep.
you pretty good, man. You get it. It's like,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. So,
Yeah, so true. And the that's I've noticed this with a lot of people over the years talking to them. They're like, "Well, isn't that manipulation?" And I think it's worth noting in our conversation today, it isn't, because you're both going in the same direction.
mhm.
It is if you're trying to manipulate them to go somewhere they don't want to go, right?
Yeah. I start off most sales trainings by telling people there's nothing on any of the slides I'm about to show you that has the ability to trick somebody into doing something that they
Hmm.
wouldn't already want to do. I
Yeah.
don't think we have that ability. Like, I mean, unless you're flat
Hmm.
out lying to somebody,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, and it's not manipulation. You're asking questions and giving somebody the space
Yeah.
to vocalize their feelings about stuff or their holdups or hangups or whatever it might be. And you're basically just giving them the opportunity to think through stuff. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's a good conversation, man. I think there's some good
It
takeaways
is.
here for sure. I did it last time. I think you're going to have to do it this time, which is the thing
That's
that we
right.
both, the hair on the back of our neck stands up every time we got to do it. But
Yep.
it's your turn,
Yep.
buddy.
I liked how you ended it. That's it. I was like, drop the mic, shut it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those of you that listen to us, obviously we're here to just just partner with you guys in what you're doing, and share some funny stories and anecdotes and experiences that we've had that we hope can help you. And we'd like more people to listen to our boring old voices ramble on and on about what we're into. And
Uh-huh.
so if you guys could like and share and subscribe and hit the bell and all those things, we'd really appreciate it. And go onto TikTok and scroll through some of our content there and drop a heart or a comment or a share. We'd appreciate it. So until next time,
Maybe send us a note about something that made you smile today.
there we go.
There
There
you
we
go.
go.
Happy hunting,
Perfect.
guys.